Of course, as a movie guy, I love to critique and analyze movies. I also love talking with others on their thoughts on movies, not to mention many of my favorite YouTubers are movie critics. But I have come to notice that talking about why certain movies matter to us, and the stories behind their roles in people's lives, I find even more interesting than just someone's critical thoughts on a movie. It allows me to learn about someone's perspectives, how they're reflected through art, and honestly, sometimes it makes me want to watch a movie even more than just hearing someone's critique. So that's what I'm here to do now, share some movies that have really impacted me personally. Not definitively my favorite movies, honestly not even entirely good movies, but movies that have left a strong emotional impact on me that shaped me into who I am. Like Last Night in Soho, fantastic movie by one of my favorite directors. I loved every minute of it, but did it have an impact on my life beyond just I watched it and I liked it? Nope, that's not what we're here to talk about. And yes, there are more than 3 movies that I would consider have changed me. I want to make more of these kind of videos, I'm just taking it 3 movies at a time. Alright, no more prefacing, I'm just hopping right into it. Here's 3 movies that changed me. Up first, the movies that I think are responsible for my love for movies altogether, Toy Story and Toy Story 2. Yes, I am already counting these 2 as one. They basically take up the same brain space for me, so I see little point in trying to separate the 2. When I was 2.5 years old, I was diagnosed with leukemia. Whoa, Dave, this got heavy pretty fast. Don't worry, I got better. My parents, God bless them, basically just flooded me with movies during this time. My dad could tell you how we pretty much watched every VHS in the Children's Hospital movie library. Watching that many movies during that critical developmental stage for me basically created the foundation for this lifelong escape into the world of movies. But among every movie watched, it was Toy Story that took up most of my brain space. I was born in '94. Toy Story came out in '95. I, like many people my age, have no memory of watching this for the first time. It's one of those movies that was just always there. It's easy to remember the role this movie played in my life as a kid, but it's hard to remember why exactly. What about it stuck out to me above the rest? Well, I suppose from watching it several times in my adult life, I can certainly point out that it's a masterpiece of storytelling and technological advancement. Anyone can easily identify why this movie unites kids and adults alike. But in childhood, you just form this strong attachment to these things that feel right to you. Things, people, places, food, you're just following what feels right without overthinking it. Toy Story was just one of those things. While Toy Story was always something that was there in my life, I actually have quite a lot of memories attached to how I first experienced Toy Story 2. It was 1999 when this movie came out, making me 5 years old, so I was old enough to have memories of it coming out. I'd consider Toy Story 2 the first movie that I got hyped for. I don't think it's the first movie I remember seeing in theaters. I think Barney's Grand Adventure is in there somewhere, but it's the first time that I felt like going to the movies was a big deal. I remember going on Thanksgiving Day with my mom and my aunt before family stuff began. I remember seeing Bullseye for the first time and absolutely melting. Like, I love this dude. Not just in theaters, but in the home theater as well. I still remember the joy I felt when Dad brought home the VHS. It came with this double-sided puzzle of the VHS cover, and on the back of it was the VHS cover for the animated Buzz Lightyear cartoon. Also, yeah, I'm old enough to remember using a DVD player for the first time. My dad gets it for Christmas and shows it to me, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell this thing is. Thinking it was like some movie video game hybrid. I'll give you a live demonstration. My dad brings home the Toy Story 2 DVD from Blockbuster to test out this DVD player of ours, puts it in, hands me the remote and says, "Here you go." And I'm like, what is this thing? What do I do? I start like actually freaking out. Like, literal panic ensues. Very quickly, the DVD menu popped up on the screen, and my dad was like, "Just press play." And I was like, "Oh, that's it? You hype this thing up and all it's gonna do is exactly the same thing that the VCR does? Like, what the f***, Dad?" Of course, it wasn't until many years later that I actually noticed the differences in quality between a VHS and a DVD, so I was very unimpressed. Like, you got me all hyped up for nothing, Dad. I don't know, I just think it's amazing how many new experiences were attached to this movie. From a young age, I was definitely paying a lot more attention to all the ways movies can be experienced than probably most kids. Overall, the Toy Story movies are incredible with their timeless characters, clever storytelling, intriguing world, and the boundary-pushing technology that brought them all together. But there are no other movies that perfectly encapsulate my most formative childhood memories of getting through cancer and jump-starting my love for film. If Toy Story jump-started my love for film, I would say Scott Pilgrim vs. the World kind of solidified it. It's difficult to find any other movie that I would consider my favorite movie to this day. Not that I'm obsessing over this movie as hard as I was during my teenage years, but any movie that could possibly compete for the #1 spot falls just a little bit short due to everything that this movie has to offer me specifically. Lots of people fell in love with this movie because of its never-before-seen blend of action, comedy, musical, and rom-com genres, all through the lens of comic books, anime, and video games. Not even Brian Lee O'Malley, the original author of the comics, attempted these styles in his other books. And yeah, let me come back to the comics in a minute. There were quite a few things that made this movie feel even more personal to me when I first saw it in theaters at the ripe age of 16. For one, I had been trying to learn bass guitar for about 2 or 3 years at that point, and bass players were never the main characters in anything, let alone had so much focus on bass playing in the narrative. Not only that, but I felt this lifelong connection to Canada. I am a quarter Canadian, and my grandpa was the first of that side of my family to be born in the US. I live in Buffalo, so trips all across Ontario, including Toronto, were frequent for me as a kid. So it was cool to see a big deal made out of Toronto, and to see Toronto itself kind of as a main character of the movie. Hearing the music of Sex Bob-omb for the first time, I basically had the same reaction as Knives Chow.
You guys are so amazing.
I was still trying to explore my own personal music tastes at the time, and these songs just hit me in all the right places. This simple, amateur, heavily distorted, but ultimately fun and lighthearted tone really spoke to me. I scoured the internet as a teenager, searching my way across too many chat boards for bands that sound like Sex Bob-omb, with all my attempts ending in defeat. But let's address the elephant in the room. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World has kind of gained a reputation for ushering a new kind of toxic masculinity among young men.
Ask him how it feels to always get his sloppy seconds.
Scott Pilgrim is an asshole. This guy sucks. He actually sucks the more and more I watch this movie, so I'm not going to sit here and argue that Scott Pilgrim didn't have any harm on any of the young men finding themselves in this socially awkward, geeky character who felt enabled to continue being assholes. But it seems to me that most of those kinds of guys are the guys to also watch something like Rick and Morty and idolize Rick. Oh, he doesn't give a f***, he says and does what he wants. The guys who aren't bothering to look into the deeper themes and meanings behind these characters and why they are the way they are. These characters are meant to hold a mirror up to problematic masculine behaviors within yourself. I'm not here to debate whether it's the fault of the viewer or the creator when a character is taken the wrong way and encourages more toxic behavior than it prevents, but I can at least share my experience watching Scott Pilgrim for the first time, having it in my life throughout my teenage years, and maybe where the movie could have done a little better. As a 16-year-old boy, yeah, I was obsessed over finding a girlfriend. I related to and projected onto dorky characters who were able to find themselves in cute relationships. Scott Pilgrim was no exception, at first. We all think the movie is going in that traditional rom-com direction.
If she really is the girl of your dreams, then you have to let her know. You have to overcome any and all obstacles that lie in your path.
This is not a good message, never has been a good message, and also is not the message I took from Scott Pilgrim. As a teenager, I was ready to be like, hell yeah, give me that ending where he earns the power of love and wins Ramona back, but that is not what happened. When he earns the power of self-respect, that's ultimately what carries him across the finish line to make the correct amends to the people he's wronged or ignored, defeat Gideon in partnership with Knives, and not necessarily win Ramona back, but rather...
try again.
That scene I showed earlier, the you gotta fight for it scene between Wallace and Scott, that was not the movie spoon-feeding its theme to the audience. That was a setup for a joke. That whole inspiring speech that mirrors many rom-com speeches is immediately followed by,
Plus, I need you to move out.
What?
The only reason Wallace has been encouraging Scott to get a girlfriend is because he's trying to politely kick him out of the apartment. That is just equal parts a great character moment for Wallace, commentary on messages of rom-coms, and a hilarious joke. It was confusing for me watching that for the first time, challenging my expectations and my hopes for how this story was gonna wrap up. So I'm glad this movie threw me off a little as a teenager and didn't give me exactly the ending I wanted to project onto, or at least showing me that chasing the girl of my dreams should not be what's driving my entire life. Now, I will say the movie does wrap all that up probably a little quicker than it should. A movie's pacing does play an integral role in how we are able to empathize with the character's growth over the period of the movie, and the pacing of the movie at the end isn't terrible, but it's not that great or supportive of this growth either. It came to no surprise to me when I heard that the movie started production before the final book was released, and so it was decided that the book and the movie were to have separate endings. To me, it feels like Brian Lee O'Malley was really the only one who knew what to do with this character's arc to make his transformation feel more authentic, meaningful, and balance out his extreme need for growth. I mean, just look at these images. He has to confront every part of himself in order to make meaningful resolutions with the people in his life. In fact, many of the characters have to. Again, not here to argue to what extent this movie has ruined a generation of boys, but it's hard to imagine those same guys who took Scott Pilgrim's character in the movie the wrong way still doing so had they been exposed to this ending rather than the hastily wrapped up one of the movie. I keep hearing they're going to turn Scott Pilgrim into a Netflix anime series. I am super excited for that, just so it can really take its time with expanding on all of its themes and characters. But I still absolutely have to hand it to the movie. It accomplishes so much in less than 2 hours. If I want to enter this fantasy world with incredibly compelling characters, with its infectious energy, I am so happy the movie faithfully brings me there. If I want deeper themes on love and relationships and emotional and satisfying character arcs, all still using the video game symbolism to reach me in ways I've never before experienced, then I'm so happy this movie introduced me to the comics. I could definitely go on and on about this movie and all the reasons I can't find another movie to dethrone it from my number one favorite spot, but all in all, no other movie can effectively transport me into an escapist fantasy world incorporating all of my interests while holding up a necessary mirror as well. Alright, so Toy Story, Scott Pilgrim, The Hollers. You're probably thinking, what the hell is The Hollers? And why are there so many famous people in this movie that I've never heard of? Yeah, that's what I was thinking too when I came across this movie about 2 years ago. This is a great time to remind you that while I just went on about how Scott Pilgrim is my favorite movie ever, this list is not a list of my favorite movies, not even a list of good movies, because this is not a great movie. It's not awful, but if you've seen any quirky yet sentimental indie dramedy about a guy feeling lost in life, reconnecting with family, and himself ultimately learns a life lesson to a soundtrack that's equal parts mopey and whimsical, you've probably seen everything this movie has to offer in movies before, and also done way more effectively and in a more original tone and style. For me, as a John Krasinski fanboy, I wanted to check it out when I saw that this was one of the movies he directed before A Quiet Place. But something really unexpected happened to me while watching this movie. Something I've never felt this viscerally before. I felt like I made that movie. I know that sounds weird. Like, I've seen movies before that are perfectly catered to my interests, or movies that I feel like I want to make a movie like this, cue Scott Pilgrim, but I have never experienced watching a movie that felt like I was beaming a movie out of my head and onto the screen. Maybe I can put it this way for more context. I watched this movie at my mom's house returning to my small hometown while living elsewhere after receiving word that my grandpa was put into hospice care and it was time to say goodbye. All the while trying to apply for new jobs and feeling lost, not really knowing how to feel creatively fulfilled in what I do. I can't remember if I watched this when I was about to get married or only recently married, but regardless, my romantic partner and I were also navigating a big change in our relationship. Visits to my hometown were instrumental in grounding myself during this not bad but pretty unstable stage of my life. All this was during 2020, by the way, so I guess add those emotions into the mix. Now, I'm a film guy, and that's just how I process everything. At the time, if I were to make a movie based on how I was feeling that also provided a satisfying healing arc for its main character, how would I do it? Well, first let's start with some of my favorite actors. Main character is John Krasinski for obvious reasons. In fact, he's pretty in touch with portraying authentic characters. Let's have him direct as well. Tone-wise, let's go for something light and sentimental, nostalgic and reflective, but not afraid to go pretty raw and genuine with the harder-hitting moments. The music can help round out its tone, so let's add some indie folk in there. And you know what? Screw it. The background score is just Josh Ritter instrumentals. With that backdrop, these characters are going to learn what it means to strengthen their relationships with each other, let go of their past mistakes, and look inward to find peace amidst a challenging time. Oh, and just as a little nod to another piece of media that inspired this very introspective storytelling, we're going to have the main character pick up the graphic novel Blankets by Craig Thompson. Everything that I love about certain movies, including my indie dramedy guilty pleasures, everything that my movie brain does to process my world during challenging times, all put on screen at exactly the time I needed to experience all of it. I think I made it clear I saw a lot of myself in John. No, I am not on a first name basis with John Krasinski, that's just actually the name of the character. But with the dad, played by Richard Jenkins, I don't think I've ever connected with an older man in a movie in a way that I felt like I saw a version of myself 50 years into the future. And I won't give away the ending in case you wanted to check it out, but I need stories where I can see how beautifully balanced life is. Of course, I have many more experiences of certain movies hitting me exactly when I needed them to in my life, which I want to talk about more in future videos like this, but none quite like The Hollers. I hope you found me sharing how these movies impacted my life to be valuable. Again, I certainly get more out of people sharing personal stories about how movies impacted their life, more impactful than just hearing people's critical takes on them all the time. I hope it inspired you to check some of these movies out, or even just think about the movies that impacted your life. If you want to hop in on the conversation, please leave a comment, and thanks so much for watching.